Right. Before I drop some crazy knowledge on y'all, first just a preamble here. I had this one experience in a college classroom with a professor that I won't say was, I'm not going to say it's trauma. It was traumatizing. It was not traumatizing, but it left enough of a impression on me. It was a negative impression, and so just to make the distinction, though, it was not an instance of trauma. I would not claim it as such. But here's what happened. I was, as I still am today, a big fan of Kierkegaard. Kierkegaard is famous for having said, life must be lived forwards, but it can only be understood backwards. And I remember in some class, some literature class, I think it was, volunteering that quote, as it applied to something we were reading or talking about. I don't remember what it was, and it doesn't matter. And the professor's response was just sort of to be like, well, yeah, duh, of course. I mean, that's just like that's just you're not really saying anything incredibly. And I thought it was profound, but his response was that that famous quotation was, which I guess he hadn't even heard of. So I was I was mogging him, as they say today. I was mogging my professor with that quote. But his response was, well, yeah, I mean, of course, that's true. That's just, who doesn't know that? So it was not traumatizing, but it did leave a mark. It did not leave a scar, but it left a mark. I'll put it that way. So I feel like when I'm about to drop knowledge on y'all, like I feel like I'm about to do, I also feel like I'm about to say something that's really obvious. And because after I think about it, it's like, yeah, that's not really that. You didn't really have to plumb the depths to unearth this bit of information. And yet it felt like, while I was thinking it over, while this was coming to me, it felt like I was really realizing something profound. So let me just share it, and you can do what you want with it. Think what you want of it. Guys who are average looking today, of course, we all know what the deal is. We all know the score. We get ignored. Young men, the loneliness epidemic among young men, having been enhanced by malignant hypergamy brought on by social media, baleful social media trends, and all that. We know all that. I don't have to go back and reformulate anything there. But here's another way to look at it. Okay, when you're an average or below average man, or if you're like a really unfortunate looking woman, like a really ugly woman, you're going to be in the situation where you don't get a lot of attention. You don't have a lot of opportunities to meet someone of the opposite sex who might be interested in you, and where the two of you might hit it off, and it might make for a lasting and fulfilling relationship. I'm not even talking about sleeping with someone. I'm beyond that. If you want to talk about, you know, guttural kinds of stuff, pickup artistry and all that, that's not what I'm about here. But meeting someone and having them be interested enough in you, and having their interest be real and not rooted in I don't know, pity or you know, a hidden agenda like beta bucks or something like that. You know, yes, it's a much more, it's something that doesn't come around as much for people who fit into that sort of category. And yet when it does come around, it's like you grab a hold of it and hang on for dear life often, because it seems like a real opportunity. I don't think that makes it, by the way, I'm not saying that makes it any less real necessarily, but it does mean that, I guess is this what it's called, a scarcity mindset? I don't know. But it's rooted in something true, where you're not going to find that many people who are interested in you, and when you do find someone who's interested in you and who you like back and who you not necessarily share all the same interests, but you click together, you enjoy being together, and so forth. That's something that comes once in a blue moon, if that, right? Whereas if you're a average-looking female, or slightly above average, even. Well, no, just if you're an average, I'll just say if you're an average-looking female today, or if you're a very, very good-looking man today, then, you know, you've got all the choices in the world, and it's, you know, shooting fish in a barrel, as they say. And in that case, you might not appreciate what you have, because you might be more thinking in terms of, well, I've got so many other choices, and I don't know if this is the one. And yes, of course, the good-looking men more often are tempted to play the field, and they often do, much more often than the good-looking women do, or the women in general do. When women play the field, it's more, it's not from it's not from this posture of wanting to conquer as many, not to, you know, not to again, to be crude here, to sink into the mire for a moment. You know, men who think of themselves as more manly, or more of a man, the more notches they have. That doesn't apply to women at all. But women still sleep around because of other reasons. So, but they don't feel more desirable the more guys they've been with. Whereas with men, it's the opposite. But in both cases, there's this mindset of, well, I've got someone, but I don't know if this is the right one, because there are so many other choices. I don't want to goof up and wind up with somebody who's not right for me. And so they end up, you know, this having so many opportunities causes this particular mindset where you don't just see something good and leap on it and hang on to it with both hands, but you kind of say, and it seems, of course, on one level you're much more fortunate that way, but on another level it just creates a different kind of mindset, or it must create a different kind of mindset where you just don't, it's like it's not a big deal anymore if somebody likes you or is into you. You just sort of shrug about it and say, yeah, okay, well, that's nice, but I've got a bunch, those people are a dime a dozen, and because I'm a really good-looking person, a really desirable person, so so it might make it harder to know who to end up with, and you become more discerning or picky, if you will, and that level of pickiness is not necessarily an advantage. It's not necessarily going to bring you greater happiness. The fact that you have more options, while superficially a better situation or circumstance to be in, is not going to not necessarily have the intended effect of you winding up with someone who you'll be happy to be with. And that's why I think people were happier when monogamy was the norm, and where their choices were fewer, and there wasn't so much comparing and contrasting potential beaux or suitors, but it was more just about like Bo Burnham says in that song, if you want love, just pick a boy and love him. So if you want a girl, just pick a girl and love her. It was more like that. And everybody's got flaws and everybody's got strengths. You don't want to end up with somebody who's like an alcoholic or who's violent or something like that. But other than those extreme notions, putting those, or who's going to not be faithful to you, but putting those extreme notions aside. And yes, I think that cheating is extreme. I'm not going to go the route of Pearl and others who say, well, it's not a big deal when men cheat. I think it's a big deal when anybody cheats. I think it's bad. It's thou shalt not commit adultery. Okay? Need I even add anything to that? No, I needn't. And then I started thinking about living in poverty, and of course, this so easily becomes a cliche. Like, you don't know how good you have it. You roll your eyes. Yeah. I know people are starving, but I don't mean it in that boring, cliched sort of way. I'm saying, if you actually were in a circumstance where you didn't know where your next meal was coming from, or if there was going to be a next meal, you would be thankful for every meal. Anything that's put before you that's edible, you're going to eat, and you're going to be thankful for getting it. And whereas when you live in an affluent society, you don't think of your meals that same way. You don't. It's not, you don't fear where your next meal will come from or if you'll have your next meal. And so as a result, you don't treasure being being relieved of hunger the same way that somebody would in a country where there's mass starvation happening. So I'm not saying be thankful for. I'm not. This isn't like a preachy thing where I'm saying, well, be thankful for what you've got. Although, I mean, I think that's how. I'm not against that. I think that's a good mindset to have. I think it's good to. I think thankfulness is a good thing to be aware of, to count your blessings and be aware of them. It's hokey to say, but it's also true. But I'm just wanting to point out the psychological state of mind. How scarcity can bring clarity of mind, and perhaps it's a straighter route to happiness, because you're not quote unquote looking a gift horse in the mouth. Is my burger undercooked or overcooked? You're just happy to have something to eat in front of you. Is my girlfriend, could she lose a few pounds? Could she, could she improve her vocabulary? Whatever. You don't necessarily think that way. It's just, you know that it could have been nobody, and now you have somebody, and your life is less lonely. Although there's the other side of the coin too, which complicates things. Are you happier when you're in a relationship? I would say if you're in a fulfilling relationship, in a good relationship, you're definitely happier. And I've said this before. As an introvert, as a loner, as somebody who prefers to be alone for much of the time, I have to admit that the times that I am the happiest are when I'm with other people who I enjoy being around. Not, but I'm not happier when I'm with other people who I don't particularly like or admire, or who are making my life miserable. So I don't know if it's better to be with someone, who's going to, if your life is going to be a misery with them, than it is to endure the state of being alone. I would say it's probably better to be alone in that case. But all other things aside, it might be a blessing in disguise. And no, that's not just coping. Shut up. If you're saying that, shut the fuck up.